How do you stay focused on what the objective is that you want to accomplish for your business and not get distracted by all the competition?
I would say it's challenging. The best thing that you could do is have a plan. If you are starting a workout program, let's say, and you have no plan at all, but you're just looking at other people and you're envious of them, like where does that get you?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So going back and ensuring that you have a goal, you have a vision, you have a way to get there is step number one.
Figuring out like this is what I want to accomplish. Don't veer off of that, even though what you want to accomplish might be inspired by others or that you see a market opportunity in a business context.
I think one, if you don't have your own plan or your own vision, you shouldn't do it, right?
For
You shouldn't
sure.
get into anything without that. And that doesn't mean you have to know everything that's going to happen for 5 years, but you have to have at least a vision. Like, where do you want to go? Like, if we were going on a road trip together, we're not just going to start driving. We're going to have a destination, right?
That can be fun though.
Yeah.
I have done that where it's like, all right, just go.
My wife and my wife would never do that to me. Like,
Same.
I wanted to get an RV for a hot minute, and then she's like, "Well, I will never go on it with you." So,
I'm still working on that. I haven't given up the dream.
okay, so let's look at that analogy. If you want to go on a trip, you're going to at least have a destination, right?
Yeah.
You might not know the route. You might start to go on the route, and then you realize there's construction, there's detours, there's roads that are closed, and you got to go around them, but you still know the destination.
Yeah.
Imagine if now you're starting to follow someone just because they're next to you and they're going to the same place, but you don't know if they know the right
Right.
directions.
Yeah.
So you have to have your own vision, you have to have your own goals, and you could do that in a lot of ways. And depending on what you want to accomplish, like if it's a health and wellness journey, you should have a goal to maybe do a race, like we
Yeah.
talked about. Like have something that you need to show up for. Don't have it just some ambiguous thing. I mean, there's certain times in my life when I had a weight goal. Like, if you don't have like a time bound goal,
Mhm.
it's kind of tough too.
Mhm.
Time bound goals are races, I should say, or like athletic events or like even like speaking engagements, like I have one next week, right? It's a time bound goal that I have to make sure I'm ready for. And
Right.
you're going to do the things to make sure you're ready for it beforehand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you show up, it's not going to be good.
Do you look at some of those situations as time is creating the pressure for the action that you need to take to achieve the goal? I guess what I'm getting at is like how do you balance those pressures as motivators versus pressures that are getting in the way of your desire to do the thing anyway, your joy of doing the thing?
There's always going to be a mix of pressure, but you should try to find the elements of joy. And it's easier said than done in many cases because you're so focused on the milestones that you want to hit and accomplish. And problem with a lot of things is like once you hit it, there's another goal, there's another
Sure.
mountain to climb. You just brought up a great example of the figure skater that won, and you tell that story better than I do.
So the young woman who just won the gold medal for women's figure skating had been in the Olympics when she was 16, retired right after that, got out of the sport. She was like, I just don't like the pressure. It's too much of like, what are you going to do next year? Blah, 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 blah. And she walked away from everything and then decided after 2 years of not skating at all that she was like, I just feel differently about myself. I kind of know who I am now and started this comeback that everyone would said is like impossible. And she just won gold. And everyone's like, yeah, I can't believe you won gold. It must mean everything to you. And she was like, the medal's nice, but like to be out there and skating,
Mhm.
that was what it was all about.
That was an incredible video to watch from her winning last night and just her attitude about it and how happy she was and had a ton of gratitude. And as you accomplish things in your life and go through them, it's easy to bypass those things. And I'm very guilty of that and just moving on to the next thing. As you're building this, though, another thing that I've realized is comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
When you're looking at competitors constantly, you're going to start to veer in a direction where they're at and not where necessarily you need to go. And what I found is, especially with social media, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Instagram, because you might be like, let's say the beverage space, right? I'm in the beverage space. I'm going to consume content about the beverage space. I'm going to get the algorithm's going to feed me more information
Yep.
on the beverage space. All of a sudden you start to see things and you develop this sense of like, man, they're ahead or they're better than me at this thing. And you start to feel down
Mm-hmm.
about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to think about veering off into that direction. And you have to remember what the vision was that you had or the destination in order to just kind of get back on track. And I found one of the best things to do is just to not follow
Mm.
certain brands. And it's not because they don't have great content, they're doing great things, but if you find yourself feeling like that, like what good does it do? And
Yeah.
that's the thing I try to ask myself a lot. I'm like, what am I going to get out of this? Like, what's the gain for me watching this? And if the gain is I watch it and I feel down and I'm measuring my like baseline at 0, and then I watch something and then I'm like deflated, like, why am I going to keep watching it?
Yeah. I think that's a pretty key insight. So it's paying attention to your emotional response to what those distractions are. And distraction even has a negative connotation because, what's happening in your algorithmic feed could be inspirational. And you're like, yeah, we should do that versus, wow, that's cool. We should run after that squirrel. Oh, look, another squirrel. Like all these things we could do all of those things. And
Mhm.
it's like, pick which one is going to be the most gratifying, the most aligned with the objective you're trying to reach and stay laser focused on that by, you're saying, take people out of your feed,
Yeah.
the good hack.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting. The first High Rocks that I did, High Rocks is one of the fastest growing fitness races in the United States. And you start in this corral, and then every 10 minutes, a new group runs out. So you're not, when you're running and you're racing, you don't necessarily know like who's around you and were they in a previous run
Right.
or previous start time, or are they in post start time? It's a bit messy, so you have to focus on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can't look at other
Yeah.
people. And I remember not really knowing what was going on, and I was trying to follow someone, and I ended up getting a penalty because I came in early, and 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 I was like following them, and I could have sworn they started with me. But that's
Uh-huh.
just an example, right? And now the whole race, I'm sitting there with a penalty, and I'm demotivated.
Uh-huh.
'Cause it said, sure, a negative 10, and it's my 10 minutes, like, off my time. It was my first race, and I was just like, "Why did I do that?" And you can't go back.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing, but I learned, and I haven't that made that mistake. If anything, I think I might have ran another one time, but
I'll make
the
up for it.
but the reality is, like, that is so true in everything. Like, if you start to follow people, you're normally not gonna get ahead. It doesn't mean you can't emulate or look at formats of how things have been done
Yeah.
or look at best practices. Like, that's not that. It's like all these brands and all these people, especially these influencers, like, first off, like, you're gonna present your best self.
Mhm.
You're not gonna record, for the most part, the shitty things that have happened or the mistakes that aren't, social worthy.
Right.
There's a lot of things that happen that are like, "Oh, man, that'd be great for social," right? But there's a lot of things that wouldn't be.
Right.
And there's things that you don't want out there, and everyone has that with brands and people.
Yeah.
So, there's not a huge upside to have this envy because it's not gonna get you anywhere. So, the way to get away from it is just turn it off.
Yeah.
It's kinda like turn off the news. Like, if it like, my wife watches the news constantly, and I'm like, "What are you getting out of that?" I'm informed. "Okay, tell me more." Like, "And then what?" And she's
Right.
like, "Well, now you know this information. Okay, what are you gonna do with it?"
Right.
And, well, if I'm having a conversation, "Oh, alright, great. Well, how many conversations you having with people?" Point being, I'm
It's not an activity that's aligned towards a goal
correct,
in an
and
action-oriented way.
yeah, and there's things that, like, she finds it entertaining, like all the
Sure.
chaos that's going on in the world, right? Like, some of it's entertaining, some of it's sad, some of it's, like, we live in an alternative universe, but I mean, she honestly
Uh,
uses it for that. She's like, "I don't even know what to expect." Like, you know what I mean? It's just kinda like this reality show that
it's exactly a reality show.
yeah.
Yeah.
For her, it's that, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have downtime and you binge Netflix and you forget about
Yeah.
life for a few hours, like, that's really important too. I'm talking about, like, when you're making decisions and you want change, if that's in your business or that's in your personal life, you're constantly looking at others, it's not a good goal, at least long term.
Well, so let's flip this a little bit with Go, for example. Not so much here are the competitors that you've identified that you are aware of what they're doing and is there value there not? Is it a distraction for you or not? Are there things that you do to find the call it like inspiration outside of the category? Who are doing things that are really interesting that I could get fuel from and create action from?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say even going back to my automotive software days, like I was looking at e-commerce type websites and I would intentionally not look at automotive. I would
Yeah.
look at what is the best website period out there. Even Even now when I'm, like, designing something, I'm not looking at a vertical, I'm looking at, okay, well, who's doing this in a meaningful way? And
Mhm.
then it could be a variety of different people. And you definitely can take inspiration from those folks, and you can learn from them. But it's something that you take, you absorb, you create a goal, you march toward that goal. Now, if that person just changed their mind or did something, like, you don't want to, "Oh, Gary changed his mind, so, like,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
veer over
Yeah,
here,"
right.
right? So, like, you just have to really focus on where you wanna be and go after it without having all these other things distract.
That seems like it's gotta be an awareness of the limitations of what you don't know. Goes back to what you're talking about in terms of what's not on the, Instagram feed, right? Gary might have had a lot of reasons to change what he was doing, and maybe that's good, maybe it's bad, I don't know, but, like, that doesn't mean I need to do that because I don't even know if I have the same problems as Gary, you know?
Right.
If you're not aware of that, you can
Yeah.
drive off the cliff.
Yeah. So the lesson of the day is comparison is the thief of joy. So Theodore Roosevelt created that quote, and it's something that I've learned to live by for the last decade of my life because I found that if you don't do that, you end up with a lot more pain, you end up with a lot more time wasted, and you end up with a lot of just, like, these feelings that you're constantly behind or someone's better than you, and that's just not a good feeling.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that quote. I love it. Alright, good stuff.
Yeah.
Go get him this week.